You know, I know it's not that long ago that I talked about I do these career videos. They don't necessarily do very well. But you know what? Heck with it. I'm going to talk about Pavel Datsyuk today. And maybe it's partly because, it's December 27th. We get into the hockey stuff tonight. And we see, all this other news come out. And so I won't have necessarily as much time for the career videos. But I want to talk about Pavel Datsyuk. Now, the first thing is, I don't need to talk about which team he played with or put up team logos because we know he's a Detroit Red Wing. Always a Detroit Red Wing. I don't care what they did with his rights for a couple of years there just to get out from under his contract. We all know darn well if he wanted to come back and play, no way he was going to be a Coyote. He was going to end up being a Detroit Red Wing again. Some way, somehow, it would happen. So, Datsyuk, who was drafted late. Very late. He's one of those steals picked up by Ken Holland, where some European scout says, hey, there's this guy, you need to get him, because he's going to be great. But you can get him late, so you don't have to take him early, take him late. We'll talk about this other Zetterberg guy some other time, too. He's pretty good. Well, we'll get this Datsyuk guy, he's going to be excellent. And he was. Now, at the time he came over, there was a little bit of hype. 70 games played that first year in 2001-2002. 11 goals, 24 assists, 35 points. They win a Stanley Cup in his first year in Detroit. And it is seen as kind of a changing of the guard is on its way. The guys like Shanahan and Hull and all these guys who've been there and have been great veterans in the NHL for a long time, they're going to pass this off to guys like Datsyuk and Zetterberg. And Nicholas Lidstrom's going to be there to help them along the way as well. 2002-2003, he played 64 games, 12 goals, 39 assists, 51 points. He was never a fantastic goal scorer, but he was a good goal scorer. And it's one of those things where if you leave the defense guessing what you're going to do with the puck, it's harder to defend against you. So 03-04 rolls around, 75 games played, 30 goals, 38 assists, 68 points. And this is where he's getting the ice time. This is where he's being counted on to be one of the core players. This is where the questions come up about Datsyuk and Zetterberg. Are these guys good enough? Can they pick up the mantle from a guy like Yzerman as his career fades? Can he be the guy? Can they be the guys who will take this team to the promised land again? Because everybody expects Detroit to fall apart. That Detroit's going to fall apart narrative was going on in that 03-04 season where it's like, there's been some playoff struggles. They're going to start falling apart. So we have the lockout. The lockout causes a lot of veterans to just exit the game where they might have played in 04-05 if there had been a season, but 05-06, they're like, no, done. That also happens in reverse, where players who might have been thinking about retirement take a whole year off. Hockey's come back and they go, you know what? I feel healed up, good to go. Timo Solani's a good example of that. 05-06, it's his year. 75 games, 28 goals, 59 assists, 87 points. He wins the Lady Byng. The Lady Byng's an interesting trophy. The Lady Byng is awarded to most gentlemanly player in the game. But it's also often awarded to a player that voters know this guy's probably not going to get the Hart. He's probably not going to get the Lindsay. He's probably not going to get a major award. So he gets the Byng. And if you look over some of the players who've won the Lady Byng, you're looking at some pretty darn good players. So 87 points, pretty good. He's ninth in the league in assists with 59. 2006-2007, 79 games played, 27 goals, 60 assists, 87 points. Lady Byng again. So he's 8th in assists with 60, and this seems to be kind of a pattern. Well, he ups that pattern in 07-08. They go to the Stanley Cup Finals in 07-08. 31 goals, 31 goals in 82 games, 66 assists, 97 points. That 97 points is 4th in the NHL, 2nd with 66 assists in the NHL. Lady Byng, Selke, they win the Stanley Cup in 08. He was all the way to the final. They win the Stanley Cup. And the narrative of can Datsyuk and Zetterberg lead this team to a cup becomes, so they win a cup, and Datsyuk's a major part of the reason why. 97 points would be a career high. He would tie it the year after. 2008-2009, 81 games played, 32 goals, 65 assists, which is 5th overall in the National Hockey League, 97 points, which again is 4th in the NHL that year. He is a second-team All-Star, Lady Byng winner, and Selke winner as best defensive forward in the National Hockey League. Huge year in 2008-2009. They get to the Stanley Cup Finals, and they lose to Pittsburgh because they had Marian Hossa. Hossa went through this really bizarre phase where he wanted to be on Stanley Cup winners. For whatever reason, they became the losing team in the Stanley Cup Finals. He would leave and leave the Detroit Red Wings and go to Chicago, and that's where that narrative changes, where he starts winning Stanley Cups, and suddenly all the memes die because he's a Stanley Cup champion. Now in 2009-2010, Datsyuk, 80 games, 27 goals, 43 assists, 70 points. Selke winner. And he is one of the best defensive forwards in the game. He, I was thinking about it when I was putting this video together. We're looking at Guy Carbonneau going into the Hall of Fame. And to me, Datsyuk is Guy Carbonneau with better numbers, with better scoring. But in terms of his defensive game, yeah, I would put him up with Guy Carbonneau. And I think when that retirement is official, which I don't think is going to be too far down the road, and once he goes into the Hall of Fame, I think that'll be the narrative. That he is what Guy Carbonneau would have been if he'd had more offense. Now, 2010-2011, 56 games played, 23 goals, 36 assists, 59 points. He's third in Selke voting. So he's third in Selke voting, even though he misses 26 games with injury. That's not too bad. 2011-2012, 70 games played, 19 goals, 48 assists, 67 points. Again, third in Selke voting, missing almost about a month of action. 2012-2013, he doesn't get hurt that year. 47 games played, so only missed one game. 15 goals, 34 assists, which is 8th in the NHL that year. 49 points, which is 10th. And again, he's third in voting for the Selke Trophy. 2013-2014, injuries take their toll. 45 games played, 17 goals, 20 assists, 37 points. And injuries continue to be a story with him after. 2014-2015, 63 games played, 26 goals, 39 assists, 65 points. 2015-2016, his last active NHL season, 66 games, 16 goals, 33 assists, 49 points. The offense does start to fade, but he is still excellent defensively at that stage. 953 games, 314 goals, 604 assists, which is 88th all-time on the NHL scoring list. 918 points. Pavel Datsyuk's career is one that looks incomplete in part because of the lockouts. So losing 30 games here, that's 30 games that would get him closer to 1,000. He'd be up to 900. Let's say 980. Let's say he missed 3 games out of those ones. Let's say he gets 30 points. He'd be up to 948. Which means in the 04-05 season, in between one he had 68 and one he had 87, he wouldn't need a whole lot of points to get to 1,000. Odds are, if not for the 2 lockouts, Datsyuk's a player with 1,000 points, 1,000 games, and about 660, 670 assists. He's a Hall of Famer. I have no doubt about that. There's a reason why I picked up a Pavel Datsyuk jersey when I got one. And people ask this, and I get these for like this was less than $20 on Full Moon jerseys on eBay. It was less than $20. Buy the Chinese ones; they're cheaper. No, they're not. They're $50, $60. This was $20. Anyways, and it's a Reebok. It's a Reebok Premier. It's not bad. It's pretty good. So, Pavel Datsyuk has had an amazing career. He does have the cup rings. He does have 3 Selke trophies. He was third in voting 3 times. He has 4 Lady Byng awards, and he is going to be a Hall of Famer. And one thing that I've been going through in my head since doing the video on the top 10 players, and before I did a list on the top 10 players of the decade, is this. We all have different ideas for what constitutes a great player. So some people may look at the goals and say that's a great player right there. Some may look at the defensive prowess and say that's a great player. And then when you're trying to mix them all together and you're trying to make a list, it is difficult. Which is why in that video I used stats, awards, and I tried to keep opinion as far away from it as possible. But that being said, it's part of the reason I'm doing some videos on careers right now. Because why not? It's kind of fun. And Pavel Datsyuk, one of the best defensive forwards, I think, in the game's history. Was he the best of this 10 years? Say going from 05-06 to 14-15? Probably. You can make that argument. And then people who like Patrice Bergeron would step up and go, well, wait a second, it could be. And then other players get mentioned as well. And that's why the list videos are fun, and that's why I like doing career videos. Even though, At the end of the day, when we look at the overall numbers for career videos, they normally aren't great. But you know what? It is fun to look at players' numbers and each individual year and how it all comes together. There were rumors Datsyuk might return to Detroit this season. He didn't. I think when you look at Detroit's record, it's probably for the best he didn't. He would be 3 years removed from this season. Odds are he would be dealing with injury problems on and off. And his offense probably would not be even as strong as it was here when he had 49 points in 66 games. I don't think it would have been a great thing for him. I think eventually, honestly, once he's retired, I think he ends up back in the Detroit organization, either behind the bench, as a defensive coach, maybe as a scout. I think he'll end up in the Detroit organization for sure, because he always seemed like a very smart player who was a step ahead of everybody else, which is part of the reason he was so great defensively and got Selke trophies. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.